welcome to Basic Folk, a podcast where we have honest conversations with folk musicians. It is me, I am your host, Cindy Howes. So grateful that you're checking out the show today. We are talking to Andrew Marlin of Watchhouse. 2 years into starting his band, Mandolin Orange, Andrew Marlin and his partner, Emily Franz, were having second thoughts about their band name. 9 years later, this past year, they announced their new name, Watchhouse. It's easy to understand why it took so long to change their name. They were putting out records, gaining momentum, and quickly establishing themselves with this funny, meaningless band name. Andrew had an orange mandolin, and he named the band as such. What's harder to grasp is that Andrew Marlin is an individual whose every action, output, and intention is incredibly thoughtful and filled to the brim with meaning. On the pod, he talks about the new band name's origin. It's named after this place he would visit as a teenager in the Chesapeake Bay. It was a quiet place where he would spend a lot of time in silence and communion, and he talks about why he wanted to bring that essence to the sound of Watchhouse. Andrew was born and raised in a small North Carolina town surrounded by the musical women in his family. His grandmother, mom, and sisters played piano in church growing up, and he was surrounded by a lot of hymns and old songs. He bought a guitar at 14 after saving up his own earnings from the nearby farm store. It took him 3 long weeks to save, and he began to write songs. He moved to Chapel Hill in 2008 to dig into the music community, meeting Emily at an impromptu jam 1 year later. With her, he met his match, started a band, and has subsequently made a life and family with Emily. He gets into how the two were able to connect, how she truly sees him and his obsession with the mandolin, and how listening to Bill Monroe instrumentals and old fiddle tunes really sharpened his playing. Andrew is a very smart and articulate person who makes important music. I'm excited to hear more from Watchhouse and where they grow musically. Enjoy, Andrew, and yes, an Emily interview is in our future. Let's take a listen to a song from their self-titled release from Watchhouse. This is New Star, and then we'll get to our conversation with Andrew Marlin on Basic Folk.
We settled in for the winter, casting our lives, found a new star, and all of our remaining hours were bundled up tight, placed in our arms. Someday we'll be older. Our eyes may cry, look what's become. Me and my former steal away, remember. At least we're all here together.
Man, okay, Andrew, I'm really happy to talk to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, glad to be here.
I really enjoy reading quotes from you in interviews. You are good at saying things. So I wanted to start this interview off with a quote from you that really resonated with me, where you said, "I'm definitely a whimsical idea kind of man. I'll come up with something one day and then I have to get it done the next day or it won't happen." So I feel that so hard and wonder where that whimsy and extreme do or die mentality comes from, if it reminds you of anyone in your family or something like that.
Maybe. I feel like possibly my mom, but I never got to know my mom that well as an adult. She died when I was 18, but she definitely seemed like pretty much always on the go, very fast, get an idea and go for it kind of person. And so I think it might have come from her, but I don't know. I should ask my dad about that, actually, now that you bring that up.
Yeah.
So
I feel that's so like me as well. It's 3:00 in the morning. I'm like, here's a great idea. Let me get up and start working on it right away. And it's like, why don't you just wait till the sun comes up or something like that?
No, I've got so many things notes and voice memos that I'll just never revisit because it's the moment has passed now,
Yeah, that's why I think I'm like a terrible marketing person, because I'm like, hey guys, this is a really good idea. These are 25 good ideas, and then it never happens. Okay, anyways, you grew up in a small North Carolina town called Warrenton, population 862, very
Yeah.
close to the Virginia border. What did small town life look like for you, and how did you see yourself fitting into the town?
There was a lot of drinking, a lot of, a lot of kind of like just really dangerous hangout sessions. We were so bored that we kind of just tried anything to occupy our minds. And it finally got to the point where I realized that I was much happier just sitting in a dark room playing acoustic guitar and not going out and risking my life every weekend.
So smart.
Well, something. And so for a long time, I didn't feel like I fit in there, and I got out of there as quick as I could. When I was about 20, I moved to Chapel Hill. But now it's funny that you asked this question now, because I just wrote a tune about it and actually had a really good visit maybe a month or so ago. I went back home and took my daughter with me and went to go see a bunch of my high school buddies, and just hang out with everybody. And it was like, oh yeah, this is definitely like my people. This is where I'm from.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see my daughter just fall right in and talk to them. And
She 3?
she's almost 3. Yeah, she'll be 3 in September, but she talks better than I do. She's like, she's got a good little brain on her.
She must be a genius.
She definitely has a big brain. I get her to explain things to me now.
I love that.
But it was cool seeing her navigate, some of those relationships that I have, and just talking to people that she hadn't met before, but I've known forever, So
Yeah.
maybe I want to go back and spend a little more time there. So
That's cool that you talk about your town through the lens of your relationships with the people there and not the landscape or anything. Sounds like it's all about the people.
yeah, I mean, that's all there is to go on there. I mean, it's a beautiful town, don't get me wrong. It's a really old town, and some of the, the buildings there and some of the old houses, they're absolutely gorgeous. But I definitely, the thing that I think keeps people there is the people, it's the social aspect.
What kind of music was resonating with you when you were young, like preteen?
Preteen?
Yeah.
I mean, probably pop country, whatever the 90s country radio was, that's what I was listening to a lot of.
Are we talking late 90s?
No, we're talking like early 90s, like Billy Ray Cyrus, Achy Breaky Heart era, like Trace Adkins. What's the one?
Butterfly Kisses.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's a banger.
It's a great tune. Is it Joe Diffie had a bunch of hits in the early 90s?
Jody Messina.
What did she? What was her tune?
It's California, Tales, Carolina.
Yeah, somewhere
I've got a
greener.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So that's kind of what I was listening to, and
Garth.
yeah, a lot of Garth Brooks, of course. Can't go wrong there. And my mom played piano for the church, so it was a lot of hymns, a lot of piano music,
Yeah, a lot of women in your family, your grandma, your mom, your sisters played piano in church growing up, and so you were surrounded by hymns and old songs, and you lost both your mom and your grandma when you were young, and you said, those tunes still hold a very special place in my heart. The melodies remind me of a time when my family just felt a little more whole.
Yeah.
So how did losing them shape your connection to the music that they would play in church?
When Grandma died, I didn't really latch on or think about music very much then. I was kind of just starting to get to that age where I was a little more aware of what was going on, you know what I mean? But definitely after Mom passed is when I really started writing music and thinking about, the absence of that, I love that music that she used to just keep the house filled with. And so, and from there, it made me just think about my grandma a little more too, and remember, times when they would both sit down at the piano at Christmas and just like play together. It was such a formative thing for me as a kid, like watching her be able to just sit down at the piano and just play and string tunes together, and and just almost just like stream of consciousness kind of thing. And I wanted that freedom. I missed it. I missed being able to see it and being able to feel that and being able to hear that. And so I basically just like kind of unconsciously, but definitely also, very consciously sought that out and tried to figure it out for myself. And I feel like I'm just now, over 16 years later, like finally starting to get that, and to be able to do that.
You bought a guitar when you were 14. You worked at the local farm store saving up your earnings for weeks. Sounded like pretty hard for a 14-year-old. Can you talk about the desire to get a guitar at the time, and why did you have to work so hard to get it? And did that impact your relationship to like learning the instrument at all?
Yeah, well, it's another one of those whimsical things. I hadn't thought about a guitar at all, and then I saw this guy that ended up becoming like a really close friend of mine through the guitar. I ran into him at the county fair, the Warren County Fair, and I was 14, and I said, "Hey, Rick, I know you play guitar, man. Do you have one that you want to sell?" And he was like, "Not really, but I have one I will sell if you want it." And so he told me he'd sell it to me for $100, and it took me like 3 weeks to save up $100.
3 weeks is not that long.
But
I thought we were talking about like 18 weeks or
no.
whatever.
Yeah. I mean, that was my second guitar. But no, the first one only like 3 weeks. But I mean, we're talking about like going to school and then. But yeah, so I just I never put it down after I got it, and just started writing songs like the first night that I got it. I'd learned like 2 chords and just kind of went from there.
Okay, so yeah, at 14 years old, what did it feel like to write songs back then, and how do you relate to that feeling in the writing process now?
I just remember being so elated that I wrote a song and I could like remember the melody and remember the lyrics and just being able to show that to somebody. And it was a terrible song, but I still remember how it goes. It's called "Live for Now." And
sounds like a good message.
I mean, it was a great message, but it was just a really bad song. All right, I'm critical though, so. But yeah, it was just really cool to be able to create something like that and then go sing it for somebody, And I think I got addicted to it, and so I've just been doing that since I was 14.
You moved to Chapel Hill, like you mentioned. It was back in 2008. You were 20 years old at the time. I read somewhere that you moved there to make an album.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, I made a solo record when I was 20, and I still have like 1,000 CDs that I'm sitting on from disc makers.
Save it for the box set.
Yeah, exactly.
When you arrived, you started getting into the acoustic scene in the Triangle area of folk and bluegrass. So, like, before we get to talking about the mandolin, because I feel like the mandolin deserves, like, its own interview for you, but we'll have a few questions. But before we get to that, How did you receive this new world of folk, bluegrass, jamming, playing on porches, etc.?
It was so exciting to me because I think, at this point, I was about 6 years into writing songs and 2 years into losing my mom. And I needed that community more than I thought I could have never pinpointed at 20 how much I needed that community and how much I needed that music. But because songwriting was always so personal for me that it was kind of hard to like show these songs that I was writing and actually play them with other people. But I always wanted to play them with other people. And so I loved when I first came here how I would sit down with just, a random group of people, and they would all just be able to play for hours on end because they had this common knowledge of bluegrass tunes, So even if you don't know a song, it's similar enough to other songs that you've heard that you're able to just latch on and play. And it mind-blowing to me at 20 years old. I'd never seen people be able to just, just jam that way together and play music like that together. And so it made me want to learn how to play solos and how to, figure that out, like learn fiddle tunes and learn some bluegrass tunes. So yeah, I just started listening to a lot of Bill Monroe, a lot of Norman Blake, a lot of Carter Family, Tony Rice, and yeah, all that.
More on that.
Okay.
But first, let's talk about the mandolin.
All right.
Here is a quote from your wife. Andrew is really, truly obsessed with the mandolin. We'll stop at a rest stop, and he'll opt to sit in the car and play mandolin for 10 minutes while everyone else is going to the bathroom and stretching.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's it. I love that. A friend turned you on to this Tony Rice and Ricky Skaggs record from 1980 called Skaggs and Rice. You said, I just love how melodic it was and how much it serves each of those songs and the tone of it. It was like a magnet to my ear. So can you further explain the draw of the melody of the mandolin and how the instrument has evolved for you over time in terms of like allowing you to express yourself?
I think it's one of the most like emotional instruments I've ever heard. It's like it just has a huge dynamic range. It can get super aggressive sometimes, like when you hit it really hard, but it's made to be hit really hard, and so it has this beautiful distortion to it. But then when you play it really quietly and like bring it way down and you just barely activate the top, it has this cool dispersion where the note, you can almost feel it ripple across the top very gently, and you can get like these piano tones out of it, especially if you're like just a centimeter from the microphone that you're playing into. It's just this really beautiful tone. And so I kind of just fell in love with how I'm able to kind of steer a band with it. Like when I play in the studio, I like to play all kinds of instruments, but live I found that the mandolin is just kind of it's a good ship steerer.
One way that you would learn was to listen to old fiddle tunes, and for someone who's like not a musician and doesn't understand technical stuff, can you explain the relation to the mandolin?
Yeah, so a mandolin and fiddle are both tuned the same way, just G, D, A, E. And so all the fiddle tunes you hear lay out so beautifully on the mandolin, especially when they're played together. It's like my favorite sound. And so, folks like Christian Settlemeyer and Emily obviously are just like soulmates of mine because I love that sound, when the mandolin and fiddle play together. But I think for learning the scale of the mandolin, to me, I found trying to just like practice scales was never very fun for me because I'm a songwriter, and so who wants to just sit there and do these like boring, mindless kind of like exercises? But learning fiddle tunes kind of teaches you how to use the scales within these chord progressions, and then because fiddle tunes and like old bluegrass singing tunes have very similar chord structures as well, it kind of teaches you how to solo within the style of bluegrass as well. So it's like you just get to check a lot of boxes. You get to learn your instrument, you get to learn the scales, and you get to just learn how to solo a little more freely.
That's cool. You also work on getting very comfortable with the technical side of things, which helps you lean into the feeling of the instrument. So can you explain that like balance and how that feels when you're able to emote in your playing versus like playing with absolute precision?
Yeah, I think it was Phil Cook who said, I don't know if you know Phil or not, but he's just a Durham, North Carolina staple.
A goddamn angel.
He is a goddamn angel, and a brilliant one. But I heard him say in an interview one time that he basically is trying to learn his instrument as much as he can to get it out of the way, so he doesn't have to think about it anymore. He just picks it up and just plays it how he feels it, and that was a really inspiring thing to read. I think I read that in like 2010. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. That sounds great. So since then and before then too, but really, in 2009, 10-ish, when I really started diving into the mandolin, is kind of started me on a technical journey as well as a songwriting emotive journey. And I think being able to ride line between the two. It's really nice whenever we're playing a show and I'm really feeling it and I feel like my eyes are closed more than they're open. I don't think about the technical side at all. But it is nice sometimes when I'm not feeling it and I'm having kind of an off night to have those, the more technicalities to lean on and to know that at least what I'm playing musically makes sense. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, part of that technicality training is you thinking in terms of longevity. You said, I want to think in terms of longevity, figuring out techniques that keep me relaxed without hurting myself on it. What does that mean, and how do you work towards that?
Mainly just staying relaxed. I think it's like in any exercise, really. If you're straining or doing something that you shouldn't be, there's no longevity in that. Like, you're going to hurt something more than you're going to help it by trying to do this exercise. And so one of the things that I always try to do is stay in tune with, how my shoulders are doing and, what my feet are doing. If I'm tapping my toes or if they're like all curled up and tense. Because all
anxiety fist ever?
Anxiety fist? No, but I definitely clench my jaws. And so
anxiety jaw?
Yeah, I have anxiety jaw. But which they're not tense right now. You're very relaxing.
Thank you.
And I feel like just being aware of what the rest of your body is doing, even if it's not your hands, just like paying attention to my neck or my shoulders, because it's all connected, is a good way to make sure I'm not hurting anything when I'm actually trying to work on those technicalities.
That's a really good practice for life, too.
Yeah.
You're figuring it all out.
I'm trying, I mean, I wouldn't say I've mastered any of this, but it is something that I think about.
Right. You have talked about how instruments are different from each other, like different mandolins sound different. You said it completely rearranges my musical mind playing different instruments, and you said they're almost like little people.
They are.
Cute.
They are.
So you don't tell your friends how to act, so why would you tell an instrument how to sound? Which is nice, Andrew, that you're friends with your instruments.
They, I mean, my instruments help me navigate all of my feelings, the same way like a therapist would. So I feel like, I just try to respect them and, talk to them, think about them. And, sometimes they want to be played and sometimes they don't. So it's weird.
Do you give your instruments names? Because I've heard you and Emily refer to instruments in interviews. I'm like, I don't know who that is. It must be the guitar or it must be the mandolin.
I don't name my guitars, but I do name my mandolins. Would you like to hear their names?
Yes, obviously.
Okay, so my oldest, actually not my oldest mandolin, my second oldest mandolin, is a Gibson from 1924 that was designed by Lloyd Lohr. So I'm really excited to have that one. And I call that one Pearl. I've got a Nugget from '83 built by Mike Kimitzer that I call Tiki, after the guy that I bought it from. I wanted this mandolin for like 12 years and he finally sold it to me. And I never had a name for it. And a few years ago, his dog died, who was a really great friend of his. Like, he was devastated, obviously, because and so I asked him if I could name the mandolin that I bought from him after his dog, Tiki, to carry on the legacy there. So, yeah, Tiki, and which might be coming on the next run. I haven't decided yet. I have a new mandolin that was built by Steve Gilchrist, who's like one of the top builders, and a good friend. And he put a lot of love in this instrument. You can tell it, like when you pick it up, it's just got a lot of life to it. And I'm excited to get to know it a little better. But I've been calling that one Goose because it's got these little stripes in the top just from the wood, which made me think of a mongoose. But then I thought mongoose was a little too long.
Yeah, save time.
So Goose.
You also like Top Gun, right?
Exactly. It's like my wingman. I guess that would make me Tom Cruise, right? I forget what his name was in that, but
Who cares?
exactly. But Goose. And then there's Gale, which is this old 1921 Gibson oval hole that I don't take out on the road much, but I love to sit around the house with it, and it's just got this really beautiful tone. I write a lot of songs on it, but it has this crazy low tone that it does. Like when you just hit a string, there's the fundamental note that sounds really beautiful and complete, but then you can almost hear the back of the instrument just like blow this air out of the little oval hole. It's a really weird sound, and so I thought it reminded me of like a very wind instrument, and so I called it Gale.
Yeah, I've read about Gale. That started my curiosity to be like, what is? And then is there one more that there might be more than one more, but there's another one from one of your favorite. I don't know what you call a mandolin maker, a luthier.
Yeah.
Who passed away, and then his wife sold it to you.
Yeah, Ella. Ella's a beautiful instrument. I sold Ella when I got the lure. I basically sold everything when I got my lure, but I've been in contact with a guy who bought that one just to see if maybe one day he wants to sell it back. We'll see what happens. Yeah, maybe he'll listen to this and be inspired.
Yeah. What is it like for you when an instrument reveals itself to you?
Well, that depends on when it reveals itself. If I don't own it, it can sometimes be like, one of those bittersweet things that it's cool to know. Like, there's this one mandolin that was built by John Sullivan that Caleb Clowder from the Foghorn String Band owns. And when you hear him play it or you pick it up to play it, it's just like, it's magic, like pure magic. And so it's cool to know that those exist, like Sam Bush's mandolin, Haas. Caleb's mandolin is called Sugar, in case you were wondering. So I'm not alone in naming the instruments.
Is this a thing among mandolin players?
I guess so. I think like there are some that kind of merit names. It's like the mandolins themselves become almost as popular as the people that play them. And so they kind of take on entities of their own. But
do all your fans probably already know all the names?
Maybe. I sell and buy mandolins all the time,
Okay. So you're hard to keep up with.
I'm hard to keep up with. But I think one of those, I've been trying to like figure out why it is that I do that actually, why I don't just stick with one. I think I get, it's kind of like songwriting, I feel like my songwriting changes all the time. And, and a mandolin, as much as they are like, they're friends and they're little people, I feel like they're on their own little journeys too. And so I don't try to just hoard them. If I feel like I'm not playing one, then I sell it because I don't want it to just be sitting in a case. And
suffocating.
Yeah. I want it to go on its own journey, and there's somebody out there that's going to be really happy to have it, and if it comes back, then I'm always happy to greet it with open arms. But,
so speaking of like your writing changing, when you got to Chapel Hill, you were really into like the simplicity of the music you were experiencing in the players, and it made you want to get like really good at your instrument, in terms of like writing songs. So how did your writing change once you started getting better at mandolin?
Mainly just leaving more space for interpretation and like for improvisation. But I try to still keep the songs, even in their like, some of the more complicated ones are pretty open, and pretty accessible. And I think that's probably the thing that I've tried to latch onto the most, is just leaving a lot of space in there for improvisation, and we can kind of, depending on how the band's feeling, we can decide to stretch that out or like and really dive into those moments, or just kind of like brush over them and keep the song going depending on how we feel. So that's the main change, I would say.
All right, let's go back to 2008.
All right.
Back to Chapel Hill. So I really love the culture around meeting people and making friends and maintaining relationships through playing music, through jamming. I think that level of connection with a person. I'm not a player, but I just like love. I love to be at the hang at the jam. You know, so I like totally love that connection. And one such person you made that connection with was your future bandmate and spouse, Emily Franz. You met at an impromptu jam in 2009 on the night of Obama's inauguration, which was a big night
Indeed.
for everyone.
Yeah.
At a Mexican restaurant. Can you lay out the happenings that night? Like, what drew you towards each other besides the good looks?
I just remember, so at that moment, I was just so enthralled with bluegrass and acoustic music and wanting to be able to play, you know, and like be able to, when I got the nod to take a solo, I wanted to be able to just like navigate my little 30-second part of this tune more freely, you know. And so Emily walks in, and it's like, I'd never seen her play with these folks before, and she just sits down very casually, and she gets the nod and just plays this awesome solo. And I was just like, well, okay, we'll give her that one. She probably knows this song really well. But then for the next like 3 hours, she just time and time again is just nailing these solos and just like, you know, just like is a force in the jam, like, you know, and just took the whole band and really picked it up to another level. But then not only that, but you know, some of the songs that I was singing, I'd been learning some bluegrass tunes so I could bring them to the group whenever, you know, I could kind of fit it in and try and sing a tune. And she always knew the choruses, you know, because she'd been playing this music forever, and so she would sing harmony with me. And I just remember like, damn, this is too easy. It sounds really good, you know, and it's super fun. And then obviously,
What's the catch?
Yeah, exactly. You know, 12 years later, still no catch. But yeah, I just remember how easy it was and how fun it was. And so we decided to get together outside of that and play music together. And, you know, eventually that led to me writing more songs for me and her. And then, you know, however many records later.
Apart from her remaining in your life to this day, she also grew up in Chapel Hill. And at the time that you met, you know, it'd been maybe a year. You were still kind of new to town. So how did having someone like Emily at the start of your time in town help you get more acquainted and more comfortable?
It was huge. I mean, she because she went to high school there, you know, and she also went to college there. She just had so many friends and so many connections in the area. And so, you know, I think we were out like 7 nights a week just hanging with people.
Wow.
And like, you know, yeah, we weren't home very much. We were actually
people.
I know, we talk about it. We're like, how do we afford that? Like, we can't afford that now. Like, what did we do back then? We didn't even have jobs hardly. But you know, it was a fun time in our lives, and it definitely, you know, helped me to get to know the area a lot better and get to know a lot of people in the area, which again makes it feel like home.
So the band began as Mandolin Orange, which is a name that you have retired and you're now known as Watchhouse. And I think in general, Andrew, we talked about the names of your mandolins. You are really good at naming stuff. Mandolins, songs, babies, bands. Mandolin Orange was kind of a funny name. You came up with the name when you were 20. It was, you know, you had an orange mandolin and you're like, oh, Mandolin Orange. And then
Yeah, exactly.
That was it. So this might be a weird question, but what does it mean to you to have names that reflect something important? And when did you realize that Mandolin Orange was not cutting it for you anymore?
I think we realized that maybe like 2 years in, but even then, like, it just felt like things were moving too fast and we still had to call ourselves something, and we just kept putting it off, you know? And so over the break, by break, I mean an intensely shitty pandemic. We just got to know ourselves a little better, because we'd been on go for 10 years, and I think we finally decided, like, now's the time. We don't want to enter back in the world, having changed as people, but also the world having changed and, like, kind of sobered up a little bit. I feel like I think I'd like to think that there's going to be a lot of good perspective that comes out of this, and a little more appreciation for life and for society and for your neighbors, all that good stuff. But I think we just wanted to set more intention and a better intention because we started thinking about how we weren't playing shows and we wanted to be playing shows, and how much that lifestyle means to us. And the thing that we identify as, which is our band name, we didn't identify with, and we felt like it didn't really convey where it is that I go when I write songs, and where we go when we sing together. It just seemed too something. It didn't seem like reverent enough.
Yeah, it seems like, I don't know if you have any tattoos, but you seem like the kind of person that would never just be like, I'm going to get a butterfly tattoo because I think they're pretty. It's like there's got to be some kind of, like, crazy meaning behind something so important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to backtrack a little bit, I think I apply meaning to all of these things because they're little lifelines, Like when I lost Mom, it threw me for a loop, and to say the least. And I've been trying to, like, fill that space for 16 years now, And so I search for the meaning in everything, and I latch on to things, and but because of that, I have a lot of important things in my life that I've latched onto, and things that I can't apply meaning to, and I can't find meaning in, I don't hold on to them. And I also don't have any tattoos for that very reason. But yeah, so
because you're whimsical and like to make, it seems like, spur of the moment decisions. So I feel like if you ever get a tattoo, it's going to be the day after you come up with the idea.
It's going to have to be. I'm glad I don't have any friends that, like, do tattoos on the spot. You know what I mean? Because then I would have a lot, and then I'd have a lot to apply meaning to as well. But where were we again?
Well, I think now's a good time to talk about the meaning of the new name, Watchhouse. It comes from a place where you would spend time as a teen in the Chesapeake Bay. It was a quiet place where you would spend a lot of time in silence and communion. So can you talk more about that place and how it might have impact your essence as a young person, and why you wanted to bring that essence to your band?
Yeah, and mainly it just reminds me of a time when I didn't know I needed to get away, but we were, and I think, my friends' parents who were taking us there knew exactly what they were doing. They were getting away from everything and taking a break from work and taking a break from, their day-to-day. And for me and my buddy Carl, we were just like, we were just 14 years old, getting to drive boats and, like, hang out on a dock. But when I look at that now, it's like, that's exactly where I want to take people, when they listen to our music. I want them to go to a place that's 2 miles offshore, and you only take your closest friends, and you can just get away from everything, because we're not a party band, and we're not the band that's going to make you, on a road trip with 15 people be like, hey, check out this jam. It's like, I think we're there for the intimate moments and the moments where you want to actually, like, think about things and reflect. And that's what the Watchhouse was. It was a place to go with your closest friends and look at the stars, or, like, look at the shoreline where there's so much life happening and so many stories happening, but your story, it has nothing to do but look at the shoreline and see the pretty lights, you know. It's a nice way to get away. So that was kind of the point of the new band name.
In the journey of leaving behind your old band name, I read that sound checks were allowing you space to explore a new sound.
Yeah. I love that. Who said that?
Somebody on the internet.
Wow. Brilliant. Yeah, we would in trying to like get ready for the show, we would always just play kind of whatever would come to mind and try new things. So yeah, sound checks are a good time to try all that, you know.
I also wanted to talk about the physical and visual aesthetic of Watchhouse. If you could describe it, how you landed on it, what it was inspired by, like, and how it makes you feel to present yourself as a spooky space folk musician.
It feels true, you know. I spend a lot of time with the lights off, but you can't just present darkness or people won't watch it.
Do you have those like glow in the dark stars on your ceiling?
I don't have those, but we do have a little rotator star light thing that casts.
Close enough.
Yeah. Lots of candles hanging out around, you know.
It's a very like Stevie Nicks.
Totally.
Vibe.
Yeah. Except in the bathroom instead of like a palace. Maybe just like the bathroom in the palace. So it sounds really good, but it's still like very real.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, but actually I love to play music in the bathroom, oddly enough, because of the tile and like it just sounds awesome. It's the same reason people like to sing in the shower. So I just turn the lights off and put a candle in the bathroom, and that's usually where most of my songs are written.
Well, if you ever come to Pittsburgh, you can stay at my house because we've just got our basement renovated and a brand new, beautiful bathroom.
Yes.
Yes.
How does it sound?
Listen, I need to go find a mandolin.
Yeah.
Real quick, but I will get back to you.
Sounds good.
I have a couple other questions about Watchhouse, but I really want to know more about like your writing on the guitar. So you write songs on the guitar, but then when you're working things out, Emily is usually the one playing on the recordings and playing guitar at the shows while you're doing mandolin. I think for the most part, that's like how it goes. So you have said that she has kind of like a loose right hand from playing the fiddle. How does that translate to the sound of her guitar?
It just, when I say loose, I mean the physicality of it, not the sound of it. Her playing is it's really effortless, you know, and I feel like the rhythm of that is, it just makes you sway. You kind of fall into it, and it's really easy to play solos over because you never have to question where the beats are. You kind of just feel it, you know, and I think that's what I mean by the looseness. It's like there's no rigidity there. It's just very, very free flowing.
So I'm interested in a couple of like girl and boy questions that might be boring, but they might not be boring. So, you know, you have worked with Emily and played with Emily so closely for years. You've worked with Rachel Bayman, who's an awesome guitar player. So what have you learned from, you know, women guitarists in your life about like what it means to play from a feminine perspective?
I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it much, you know. They're just like so talented and easy to play with, you know. And I hadn't really thought about it from a feminist perspective, you know. But
well, when I'm getting back to you about the mandolin in my bathroom, you can get back to me about this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that they definitely have a way of tapping into, at least from like playing with Emily and Rachel, they both have amazing perspectives on life, and I feel like are both, you know, two people that I would trust their judgment on pretty much any situation. So, I think the fact that they want to play music with me is very grounding and gives me a lot of confidence. So, yeah.
In a lot of female and male duos, it's kind of, and I don't know if you've ever thought of this before, it's kind of unusual for the guy to have the lead vocals and for the female to kind of be the backup player. So how have you reflected on gender roles in like musical performance versus like the reality of your band?
I think mainly just we just do what feels right for us, you know what I mean? I think it's easier or maybe just more of a common practice for people that aren't making the music to draw those comparisons, you know?
Like us idiots in the journal.
No, not that. It's you said it, not
the
me.
Patriarchy.
Yeah, no, I just think it's more like when you're in it and you're doing it, and those relationships are more than just like just something on a screen, you know what I mean? Like when you're actually waking up to it every day and you're sitting down to do it, it's not something that I or Emily that I know of really thinks about. We just, you know, I write the songs and I usually sing them. And for her, she's such a good backup player, you know, she's great at like finding those spaces and really great harmony singer. And I love it when she takes leads on tunes and when she feels like she actually can connect with a song enough to want to sing it herself. But I think in terms of like our standard roles, we just do what feels natural.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about though, because I mean, in this interview right now, I'm like really having a hard time finding a band like Watchhouse where it's a man and a woman and the woman is like primarily the backup player.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Sweet. Well,
yeah.
You should ask Emily that. I'd really love to hear her thoughts on it and see.
Yeah, for sure.
How she, you know, maybe she's given me more than I think. You know, I would love to just hear her perspective on that to see where she's at.
I'll put that in my Emily folder.
Yeah, you should.
For the future. Yeah.
Sweet.
I want to talk about the muse and your receptors. Being open to inspiration whenever you feel it. And you have been writing for a really long time, and it's been a major part of you for so long that you always have your receptors on. And I read that this practice actually makes it really hard for you to stay present. I read in one particular instance especially, it's hard to stay present with your daughter Ruby. How have the receptors helped you stay keen over the years? And then why do they actually interfere with staying present? I would think that they would be helpful, like in observing the beauty of life.
They are, and it's wonderful when you're by yourself, you know, because then you can like try to pick apart the minutia of any given thing that you're staring at or thinking about. But at least with hanging out with Ruby, like she doesn't stay in one place very long. And so, like, for me, I could, like, you know, I could sit right here in this closet where we're doing this interview and be pretty set all day, especially if I had an instrument. But I think I want to be available to her to just navigate all the whims, you know, and just at a drop of a hat, be able to take off running into the woods and play hide and go seek with her, you know. And that's a muscle that I'm learning to, like, still learning to be able to engage, like, very quickly, you know. Yeah.
So back to the record, self-titled record for Watchhouse. It is out now. The episode drops after the release date. So Josh Kaufman, who is, I actually met Josh many years ago, I think in like 2008 when he was with Don Landis. They came by in Pittsburgh, and I met that whole kind of Balthrop, Alabama crew. He's had a lot of projects over the years, most recently like working with the band Bonnie Light Horseman, The National, Taylor Swift.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of her. She's like a folk star.
Yeah. I saw her on a Tiny Desk concert.
Oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
So she's doing all right.
Yeah, she's pretty good. So Josh produced the record for you, and it seemed like the first time you were sharing producing with somebody, and in the past you said you'd work with an outside person if they were a producer that feels like part of the band. So how did it feel to bring in this new person who I know is wonderful? You probably know he's wonderful too. And how in practice did he encourage you to stretch yourself musically?
In actuality, he literally said, let's pretend like you've never made a record before when we go to make this thing. It's like, okay, Josh, that sounds great.
You're like, anxiety jaw.
Yeah. Yeah. No, actually, it just like my whole jaw just like dropped down and my mouth was wide open. I probably ate a few flies after that. Basically, the first time we met Josh, I think he was playing with fruit bats at this like this thing that Eric was putting on at Newport, like kind of a variety show, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he was playing bass, and I loved his bass playing, and I loved his vibe. We ended up talking to him for a little bit, and because I knew he played with like Hiscold and Messenger a little bit, and, you know, with Phil and knows JT Bates. And
also, you can't miss him.
Yeah.
He's just very physically memorable.
He is, and he also just has a glow about him, you know? Like, I've never seen him moping. I'm sure he mopes, but I've never seen him mope. And we just, like, whenever we would run into him, it was always so positive, you know? And then we'd watch him play or listen to him play, and it was, like, he'd be the person that I would lock in on stage, you know? And it was, so finally when we went to make this record, we didn't know we were actually making the record yet. We kind of just wanted to feel it out with Josh to see how it would work. And we asked him to go to this lake house with us and basically do a demo session. And we got there, and the hang was just so great. And for about 4 days, we did nothing but just like laugh, eat good food, and make this record. And we knew right from the start of the very first song that we recorded, we were like, okay, we're making a record. This is not a demo session, you know?
Not a drill, folks.
No, this is not a drill. This is the real thing. But he just brought a really great energy to it. And I feel like he brought out the best in me and Emily, and it made us shine on our own album like we'd never have before. The whole band sounds incredible on the record, you know? Like we, in the past, have tried to really fight for these wide open spaces for some reason. I mean, like it's still important to us, but Josh was like, man, you guys naturally play that way. You don't have to fight for this, you know, like you leave that space, like just go play and it's going to be fine. And so we did. And I think all of the songs on this record sound really fresh and very in the moment. And it basically is that. It's basically a live record that was just us playing in this living room in this little lake house. So,
So on the theme of home, just kind of like poking around your past press.
I know it's weird doing an interview with like I'm having to answer for myself here.
Is it upsetting?
No, it's good.
You wrote the album Such Jubilee in 2015 about the celebration of home, as in coming home from touring.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about this a little bit in this interview about like reflections during the pandemic. But how has the concept of home evolved during and after the pandemic?
I think it's really shined a light on how much community means, you know, for home, because we missed our bandmates and we missed a lot of the people that we would see on tour, you know, just randomly running into people. And those people make us feel like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, you know what I mean? And we can be halfway around the world and be with the people that we love and trust the most, you know? And I think in that sense, it's kind of that like age-old troubadour like mindset where it's just like wherever I hang my hat is home. But it kind of is, you know. I mean, if you love the people that you travel with, and we've cultivated a band of people that we love and trust and want to be with, even when we're not playing music, you know. And we didn't get to do that much during the pandemic. We were all in our separate little corners of the earth, and you know, I think I can't speak for the rest of the band. Maybe they were glad to get away from me, but I definitely I miss them.
I don't blame them.
I know, exactly. I'm so long-winded. But and Emily, too, we've talked about it a lot, too, like during the pandemic, how much we missed the crew and how much we miss seeing everybody.
Yeah. It's nice to be able to get back to it. That's the word on the street.
Yeah, I know. I think the CDC said that musicians can hug each other again. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's like
Okay, so one more thing before I let you go. It is a very important part of the podcast called the lightning round. And I know we've been asking you all sorts of questions, but these are just maybe 10 or so more fun time snack-sized cues. You ready?
I'm going to turn the light off. Hang on.
Okay. Listeners,
Okay.
Andrew has just gotten off, and he's turned the light off, and he's got his headphones back on. And
All
here
right.
we go. It's the lightning round. Andrew Marlin, what is the first song you learned on the guitar?
My own song, Live for Now.
Wow. That banger.
Yeah.
Hit
it's true.
song.
Yeah.
What is your karaoke song?
I don't do karaoke. It scares the shit out of me.
I don't know that song.
Yeah. That's I can't find the lyrics of it anywhere, and that's why I don't do it.
Do you like dogs or cats or something else?
I like cats.
Really? I like them too. It's unusual to get a cat person on this lightning round. But I love it. Okay, what is your coffee order?
Just a standard, usually a medium coffee with a little bit of cream.
First celebrity crush?
Probably Jennifer Aniston, I would say. But
Interesting.
she's beautiful.
She is.
Natalie Portman.
maintained.
That was a hard one too. Natalie Portman is a heartbreaker.
Oh yeah, Natalie Portman. Who is the nicest musician you've ever met?
Nicest musician I've ever met? Probably Josh Oliver, who plays guitar with us in our band.
Nice. First album you bought with your own money?
I think it was a Led Zeppelin record. Led Zeppelin 2, maybe?
Respectable.
Yeah.
What was your first concert?
Wait, I have to go back. Shit, is the lightning already passed?
No, we can rein it back.
Because
in.
it has to be with your own money, though?
Yeah.
Okay, Led Zeppelin 2. Never
It's
mind.
significant.
It's passed. Yeah, Led Zeppelin 2.
All right, what was your first concert?
First one that actually meant something would be Pearl Jam when I was in the 9th grade.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, it was a great one. And he was wearing a shirt that said, "Who would Jesus bomb?" And it had a picture of George Bush on there with bombs going at George Bush's face.
God. I love Eddie Vedder.
I know. He's amazing.
He's the musician that I would want to meet in my life that I probably never will.
Probably one of the reasons I write songs, but we can talk about that later. Yeah.
The next episode
Yeah.
is about Eddie Vedder. Beatles or the Rolling Stones?
Beatles.
Flying or invisibility?
Oh, invisibility.
Whew, another rarity of an answer. Okay, here's the last question, so make it count. Where's the most beautiful place you've ever visited?
Salt Spring Island in Vancouver.
Good answer. I have not been to Vancouver, but the pictures are nice.
Oh, you should. It's awesome. It's so pretty.
Nice. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for taking so much time to talk about the mandolin, naming things,
Yeah.
etc. It's really a pleasure. I've really been looking forward to this.
Same here. Yeah. Thanks for doing it.
Basic Folk this week was produced by Sarah Siplak. Alex Stanton of the band Townspeople composes our music. Basic Folk is on the American Songwriter Podcast Network. I'm your host, Cindy House. Hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you think of somebody who would also like this interview, please share it with them. You can tell them they can get it wherever you found this podcast, wherever they get podcasts, and at basicfolk.com. And I'll talk to you next time. Okay, bye.